Hello, students. Today we're going to learn about the French Revolution. All right, so to cover the French Revolution correctly, I would definitely need at least a week, if not 2 weeks. I'm going to try to break it down in 15 minutes or less. Okay, so the French and the British had this massive war that spread across 5 continents, and it was crazy expensive. War is expensive. You have to feed your troops, you have to clothe your troops, you have to make sure you have to treat your troops in medically. War is expensive. So the French had been in this war. France is broke. That's one reason that the revolution came to be. And then also a major part of this revolution was due to a breakdown in society. French society was set at this time into 3 official levels they had, and they called those levels the estates. The first estate was made up of the clergy. Just in case you don't know what clergy is, that's your holy people, your priest from the Catholic Church, priest, monks, whatever. The second estate was your noble people. Noblemen, these are your elites of society. And the third estate was everyone else. Everyone from me, a school teacher, school teachers, journalists, lawyers, doctors, all the way down to your homeless person on the street. Everyone else. All right. First estate, second estate, third estate. Now, this is a really important part of why the French Revolution happened. The third estate paid taxes. The first estate and the second estate lived off these taxes. They lived gluttonous, luxurious lifestyles in mansions, and they partied all the time. They lived sweet lives based off the work of these people. They didn't like that very much, the third estate. Well, okay, now it's the late 1700s and France is broke and the king is freaking out. What am I supposed to do? He breaks down and calls what's called an estates general. It was this ancient French thing that they had where you would call together leaders of each estate to have a meeting and help the king decide what to do with France. So we had members of the first estate, members of the second, oops, what am I doing? Well, whatever. Members of the second estate and members of the third estate. Now, they were voting on how to fix things in France. Remember, these guys are rich, and these guys are rich, and they're friends. These guys are the outsiders. So if you're having a vote amongst 3 people, and 2 of them are friends, and 1 of them is the outcast, well, these 2 are always going to vote the same way. So it went on for a month that these guys argued with these guys about how they were even going to vote. They met every day for a month, simply trying to decide how they were going to have a fair vote. It didn't come to be, and one day, these guys, the Third Estate, walked out. They simply walked out of the Estates General. When they walked out, they went and they met in their own room and named themselves the National Assembly. And they claimed that they were now the official government of France. Self-declared. They declared themselves. Then they kept going and showing up at this. They kept going. Like the First Estates and Second Estates were having their pseudo Estates General, and the Third Estate was now meeting in their own room and calling themselves the National Assembly, saying they were going to fix France alone. Well, one day they showed up and the door was locked. The door to the room they had been meeting in was locked. They didn't let that deter them. They walked until they could find a place where they could meet, which happened to be a tennis court. They all went and they met on a tennis court, and they all signed an agreement promising they would meet together every single day until they fixed France's problems. This is called the tennis court oath. The tennis court oath. All right, so I'm fast forwarding a long time because I'm trying to get through this in 15 minutes, but rumors spread. You are high school students, you know how rumors spread. One person says something and they say, and rumors spread. So rumors spread that the king was sending troops to destroy the National Assembly. Now, the king was not sending troops to attack the National Assembly, but everyone believed this was happening because rumors. Okay, so the people freak out, and the people also, another rumor. There's a rumor that inside the Bastille, which was a political prison, inside this political prison called the Bastille, there were rumors that this place was a weapons storage facility. The people believed there were massive amounts of weapons stored in the Bastille. And the people believe the king is sending troops after them. So there's a big, massive protest outside the Bastille. Thousands of people are there, and they break in. They break into the Bastille to steal the weapons so they can fight back against the king's troops they believe are coming. Oh, well, to their surprise, the Bastille was not a weapons storage facility, but they did release a bunch of political prisoners. This was July 14th, 1789. And this day is called Bastille Day. Today in history is called Bastille Day. All right, so that was 1789. In October 1789, the people, we're talking about just the everyday people, are struggling and suffering financially. Mothers can't afford to feed their own children due to prices of bread going up. Meanwhile, the king and his wife, Marie Antoinette, are hanging out in their luxury party palace called Versailles. And the people are mad. Like, you know, they have every right to be. The people can't afford to feed their own children, while King Louis XVI and his wife are having lavish parties every day at their party palace Versailles. So the people in October of 1789 have a march led by women called the Women's March. And they surround Versailles and they're out chanting, bread, 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 chanting and screaming, demanding to be able to afford just basic things like bread. This is where Marie Antoinette, this is the king's wife, Marie Antoinette is rumored, it's important, rumored to have said, well, if they can't afford bread, why don't they eat cake? This is very, very important to understand why this is such a big deal. Let them eat cake. Okay, I don't know how often you actually do the shopping in your family, so I'm going to break it down for you. Cake is more expensive than bread. Cake is more expensive than bread. And this let them eat cake thing is saying that Marie Antoinette herself was so rich and so removed from what the everyday person was going through, she didn't even know cake cost more than bread. She was like, ugh, well, if they can't eat bread, why don't they just eat cake? And it's a symbol. There is no proof that Marie Antoinette actually said this, but it's gone down in history that when the people were out surrounding Versailles, chanting, bread, 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 that she said, oh, why don't they just eat cake? And this was why the people hated her so much. The people didn't know Marie Antoinette. No one personally knew her. They just hated the symbol of what she was. And to them, she symbolized so much wealth and just like elite snobbery that they hated her. Okay, so back to the Women's March. The people do capture the king and his wife and their children and drag them back to Paris. Versailles is actually a bit outside of Paris. They drag them back, and I'm going to put in quotes, imprison them, because they were imprisoned in a palace. It wasn't the worst life ever. But the people forced the king to live imprisoned in his palace in Paris until France's problems were fixed. Now, I have a funny story for you. 2 years later, in June of 1791, they tried to escape. Marie Antoinette had been bugging her husband, like, oh, we have to get out of here. We have to get out of here. We have to get out of here. I hate being stuck in this awful palace. Ugh. And finally, the king says, all right, fine, we're out. Let's go. And they dress up like peasants to sneak out. And they go out in a carriage, but they're caught. Let me tell you why they're caught. I wish I was prepared with money, but I don't have any money with me. But what they did was someone recognized the king. And the reason he did it was, imagine this is money. You know how money has the picture of your leader on it? Somebody reckoned, they were like, hey, 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 that's the king. He's trying to escape. Stop him, stop him, stop him. And they were caught and put back into their palatial prison. And all right, I'm fast forwarding again. Now we are in September 1791, and the National Assembly is now recognized by the king. He was not happy about this, but didn't really have too much of a choice at this time. And the king acknowledges the National Assembly as the government of France. And they agree, the National Assembly agrees to make it a constitutional monarchy. A constitutional monarchy means you have the government, like ruling leaders, and a king. So now it's 1791, and the National Assembly is the official government of France, ruling with the king. That is a constitutional monarchy. In 1792, the National Assembly declares war on tyranny. And France attacks other countries in Europe, claiming to be freeing the people of tyranny. Like they're freeing the people of their authoritarian ruling monarchs. So now we've got this internal struggle inside France, and France is also attacking other countries in the name of defeating tyranny. All right, so political parties. There are political parties in every country. I'm sorry, I don't know the names of the political parties in Slovakia, but hopefully you guys know what a political party is. And the National Assembly's main political party is called the Jacobins. The Jacobins were like intellectuals. Well, some of them were. And they worked very closely with the sans-culottes. Funny story about why they were called the sans-culottes. Not really, it's more like sans-culottes. But culotte are short pants, like pants that go past your knee, but above the ankle. And they were all the rage at this time in France. The fashion was to wear culottes, but poor people couldn't afford fashionable clothing. Very, very poor people just wear what they've got. They can't afford high fashion. And sans means without. So they were the group called without culottes. And the rich people called them that as an insult. The elites called them sans culotte as like this insult. But the sans-culottes took that on as a badge of honor. And they were like, yes, we are the sans-culottes. So the sans-culottes were the working class. And they received help from the Jacobins because the Jacobins had more money than them. I mean, you know, whether it's fair or not, realistically, nobody listens to poor people when it comes to politics. Nobody cares what poor people think. So these poor working class people got help from like one little notch above them economically, the Jacobins. Everything's going like kind of okay as it can for a revolution. And sorry, I've lost my place. And then January 1793, they're a radical component of the Jacobins pushes this revolution really, really far, and they execute the king. Dun, dun, dun. Now, King Louis XVI is dead. No longer. He's gone. 8 months later, they kill his wife. Marie Antoinette. Antoinette is also executed. And that is a good intro to the French Revolution. I left out a lot of really important stuff, but tried to give you the very most important details for the French Revolution.